Welcome to the Go Team Live, the Meaning of Life Quest HQ podcast event with special guest Erin Griffin. I am absolutely realizing that this conversation that we have about death and dying may be something that I really need to look into for where I spend my time and energy in maybe years to come, because I was so comfortable, fulfilled by talking about death and dying with Erin, who is a death doula. Erin's energy for death and dying is just on point with my philosophy for life, where we need to be taking the steps and processes to live life in the most fulfilled way by taking stock and making sure that we do life in the now as best we can. And the best way to do that is to know that our days are limited. So we're going to have to make the most of the time we have. I can't say enough for the energy I'm feeling for the podcast, and I'll throw it to Justin just to check in with how you're feeling in comparison to me about the podcast we just heard.
I don't think I'm too far off feeling how you're feeling. I do like the conversation too, because it does spark this whole, like, what happens after, what happens during, what do we know? And it's like, where could that go? And it was honestly, it was interesting having her on in like more ways than just about the death, because like I learned something else. Like I'd never heard of like trauma informed in yoga, so I was like, that's new to me. Or like, I'll take anything new. But then also her examples about like how you never know when that last moment's going to be, or that last conversation's going to be, and just through like this like one interaction, as like you've heard on the podcast, you'll hear, is like it can make a difference, right? If like someone knows your wishes, or someone knows how you're feeling about what you're going through at the doorstep, sort of thing. So it was really cool podcast. And yeah, I could maybe I'll dig into it as well, like why do I like thinking about it so much? Not that I want it to happen, but like the after, the during, the before, what would I do? Just all of it. It is a deep thought worth contemplating.
Definitely. And the Go Team Live is powered by GAIM On, and with the process of GAIM On that we've set up is asking those very important questions on a daily basis that uncovers how to create your best day and therefore your best life. GAIM On is a journaling system that you can share with your friends, family, work colleagues. If you're an influencer and you'd like to create a team of people that want to do the things that improve upon a daily experience and add value to the lives of many, it has that capability, and it is such a beautiful energy within these confines of your phone, yet we have a community experience, not unlike the Go Team Live. The simple steps in GAIM On are, what are we grateful for? And that helps you feel supported. It makes you feel like you have enough and that you are enough. And it reduces that need or want to be able to search for more, but you have everything that you need. And that creates, what they say is the fastest way to happiness. Then we go for awareness for how we're feeling, and what better way to check in with yourself and the relationship you have with yourself, and then to others, by increasing your emotional intelligence by taking a daily check on where you're currently at. And then beautifully, the next step is setting your intention for the day. So that may be getting tough tasks done. It may be seeing more positive emotions. And it may be just setting your day up the way that you choose. And whatever challenges and obstacles you face outside of your door, outside of your comfort zone, you've set your course so that you can come back to that place that you wanted to be after you've met the match and done the work and been in the active service as we do day to day, and creating that opportunity and manifesting the day in life that you choose. Then we have a mindful moment, and by drip feeding the knowledge and practices of mindfulness, you get to reduce stress and anxiety by practicing being in the present moment. And that is the true gift that we have to share, is learning the beauty and cherishing the moments that we have, whether that's with people, nature, your pets, and just your own self and your own thought space. Because that, by able to filing your thoughts or practicing meditations, you really are improving the capacity you have in your mind to be able to navigate the world around us. And then next is the organizing non-doing. And this is where we get to live our lotto life and have more time. And what would you do with more time had you the opportunity to create a place and space to stop? And it's not so much the doing nothing in essence where we're losing productivity, but by allowing ourselves to relax, rejuvenate, and to change your perspective on what it's like to actually carve out some space for yourself in your day, allowing that knowledge that the world keeps spinning, and maybe you can just take your foot off the gas a little bit after that non-doing time, because that is so important, because we get so trapped in always being on that we very seldom have an opportunity to switch off. And that is so important to improving your life experience. So we'd love to see you on the Game On app to be answering these questions in a team environment and feeling the vibe of the tribe that are doing it to create your best life and your best experience together. So find your way to win the day. Download Game On. We'd love to see you there. It is time for the Go Team Live podcast experience with Erin Griffin. I am so happy for the energy and the enthusiasm and the experience that we shared. So without further ado, let us roll the tape. Let's start recording now. Fun. That's what we do for fun. And we'll see if we get any more people on. I think they wouldn't be late. Erin was on time. Everyone's
I'd probably be late for my own funeral, though. I'm that kind of person.
Do you have a funeral plan then?
It's an unfolding and evolving process, but I do. I have a current one, but I've also said I'm allowed to change it.
Of course.
Yes.
And that includes music?
Have a playlist? Yes.
Yeah. Have you currently got the playlist on Spotify?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I also have one, but I haven't played with it for a while. But is there any, while we're just waiting, what songs are on there? Have you got?
I haven't looked at it in a while. Some are songs like not appropriate for when someone's died, but that I really love and hope will remind people of me. Like some Plump DJs, Can We Get Kinky Tonight? Like real old bangers that I know people that have loved me for a long time will.
Yeah.
And then I've got another playlist, actually, I can see it now, called Transition for when I'm dying, like that are more like, Angie McMahon, Essie Jane, Sinead O'Connor, like that might be more appropriate for that, that portal of dying, as opposed to Don't Forget Me and how we partied and all the mischief we made.
And you've obviously, this is like a podcast conversation, but that's all right. The people that you have been working with, have you helped them curate playlists?
Not playlists, not yet. I have sometimes suggested it to families if that's something that they want to do, but never to a point of like, this is what you must do, this is the way, this is what I've done, and therefore you should. Normally just a gentle little seed planting. But I have more recently been involved in at funerals, some of the songs that come in there, which has just reminded me how provocative and important music is to support us feeling our feelings.
Yeah.
Mm.
Oh yeah, I've got mine out now. I've actually one time on a second date, I was in a double-decker bus at Fringe at the girls' school, and I played my funeral playlist because we were just sitting there, and I was just like, we were talking about it, and I can put it on, and so we're putting it on a second date. It was hilariously romantic. I've even got a song for everyone to like bring me out in the coffin. You know that Scribe song? How many dudes, roll like this? How many dudes, flow like this? Not many, if any.
Amazing.
Oh my goodness. Geez, I've even got Your Mama Don't Dance by Poison on here. Another one, Bites the Dust by Queen. Burn One Down, Ben Harper. Do You Realize the Flaming Lips? That's gorgeous. Don't Forget Me by Red Hot Chili Peppers is actually an incredible song.
I'm going to take some notes and maybe plump up my...
Welcome to the Black Parade. Dancing with Myself, Billy Idol. Old Man Sam, Spiderboat. The Golden Path, Chemical Brothers. The funniest one is It's Nice to Be Alive by Ballpark Music, because the first lyrics are, boring as batshit, you people make me. I can't remember the next, but it's like just slapping the whole audience in the face going, you're all silly. Oh, but it's nice to be alive. Yeah, classic.
And I have no doubt that will put a smile on people's faces, even through...
Oh, I love a silly funeral. I think it's just the biggest and best party you could imagine.
I feel like if I say this pun to you, you will definitely recycle it.
Go.
But I feel like you, my friend, would put the fun back into funerals. That's not mine. God. That's not mine. So you can have it.
Sure. Oh, that is brilliant. I like that so much. All right, hey, maybe we'll just start, and if people drop in, they can. Because, I appreciate time and I don't want to keep you for longer. So let us kick off. Welcome to the Go Team Live. I apologize if I act a little bit excited about this episode because we have one of my favorite topics on, and I will throw out a trigger warning very early. We are going to be talking about death and dying. And if I seem a little bit overzealous and a little bit excited, it's not that I am dancing on anyone's graves. I am just the one to believe that if we can acknowledge death and dying, it gives us so much more opportunity to live fully, and to not be so afraid about death and dying is being able to wake up every day and high five the sky and just be so excited for life. And yeah, so I appreciate, like, we have family members that pass, we have pets, and if this brings up that emotion in you, and my heart goes out to you, I'm all heart for the loss of people. It's much easier to be the person dying, and to leave us behind is difficult and it's challenging, and that's what makes it all the more beautiful and all the more important to talk about it with incredible people that have gone down the journey of their life and ended up being in this world where they get to work with people like us, left with grief and trauma, and also helping us on that transition to death and dying. So I will quickly say hello to Erin. And how are you feeling, Erin?
How am I? A little bit like you. I get really enlivened by talking about death. So I am feeling quite effervescent and bubbly.
Awesome. Erin is fantastic at talking about death and dying. I've been doing some research, and this is going to be a rollicking ride in the world of death and dying because she is passionate about what she does. Erin knows in her bones that we can do death before, during, and after differently. Erin has a fascination for the way the ritual, the ceremony allows us to influence the trajectory of grief and advocates for honoring even the little deaths that are simply part of life. So we have so much to cover in this conversation. But before we do, I would like to ask Erin to give us a nice grounding meditation so that we can actually bring all of us to the conversation, and by doing so, listening, accepting the knowledge, because I know it's kind of hard under stress sometimes to be really responsive to what we're talking about. And we're going to be talking into some depths about death and dying. So I'm sure this is going to be a welcome place to get coaxed into this beautiful home that we've created here at the Go Team Live. So please, Erin, if you would not mind taking us through a meditation or a prayer or whatever it is that you so choose.
Thank you. And I first should acknowledge, thank you for letting me into your homes, guys. And thank you for having me here. It is a privilege that doesn't go over my head. I really appreciate this opportunity. So I vote, get your beautiful body comfortable, have a little wriggle, just roll, maybe stretch, yawn, reach. And as Pete said, we're going to be talking about death and dying, and that can evoke a lot of things and stuff. So I feel like my responsibility is to help us have some resources to be in our body, to feel safe and steady in our body. And then I hand the responsibility back to you guys, as you know the way to steady yourself. I hope that makes sense. Okay, I'll do what I can do, and then back over to you guys as custodians of this body that we don't get to keep. This body. So if you're comfortable to close your eyes or just let them soften and maybe turn away from the screen. And just allowing yourself to arrive. Your physical body's here. You can probably feel the support underneath you, maybe the support behind you. But as you follow the breath deep into the body, can you start to access the support within you? This kind of reservoir of wisdom that when we get quiet enough is just waiting for us to listen, to pay attention. You might take the biggest breath you've breathed all day and feel yourself sit up a little taller, creating a bit more space. And then calmly letting the breath go and letting your body just get a little bit heavier, sinking further into this moment. You can get quite concerned about the future or regretful about the past, but the here and now is where you are most useful. So see if you can just invite yourself to be here and to stay here. And knowing that you have your beautiful breath, your beautiful body as an anchor. If over the course of this evening you feel somewhat activated and your breath is short or edgy, and you kind of sense that feeling of fight, flight moving through your body, you have to move something. Let yourself move. You don't have to hold yourself captive. You can do what you need to do to honor your own needs. And of course, at if any stage you need to take a break from listening to this discussion, or if something arises for you that's really a bit too big for this space, you can just quietly maybe bring your hands to your body, apply a little bit of pressure, just confirming for yourself, okay, no, I'm here and now. I've got me. Just kind of bringing yourself back out of the experience. This is a really beautiful way to even start to contemplate death and dying and the process the body will go through by diving into the body, noticing the aliveness that is there, and becoming intimate with the fact that one day it won't be animated, that aliveness will dissolve. So to come into presence, to come into the aliveness of this moment is one of the biggest gifts we can give ourselves. It might be nice just to take a moment before we come out of this meditation, just to acknowledge yourself for showing up, for your courage, for your curiosity. And then taking another big, beautiful breath in, but this time holding the breath. And then when you're ready to let go, slowly, slowly release it all, any expectations, any ideas of what's about to happen. Just let yourself be in the mystery. When you're ready to open your eyes, do so gently. Maybe take another little stretch, another little reach. Here we are again.
Thank you, Erin. I failed to add into the introduction that you are a trauma-informed yoga instructor, and you've been a yogini, practicing yoga and facilitating yoga for about 10 years.
Yeah.
And you were only saying the other day that a yoga instructor asked you to take their session for them recently, because as a yoga instructor, like you really do hold space for people, right? And it can be really hard to do that consistently for a very long time and just show up and just be there for these people. But in that meditation that you shared with us, it's another aspect of meditation and an understanding of how you can guide people through. That was only a short incremental, meditation, and you got so much depth out of that to be able to give us that grounding and that place in ourselves that is so important. Like I imagine being able to have a group, and you're able to facilitate in that way, just being so rewarding, and just feeling the energy of the room just must be stunning.
It is. It's pretty special.
Yeah.
Pretty special.
So your trauma-informed yoga, like how does that work? Is that just like that real soft, gentle and understanding and bringing people to themselves?
I think trauma-informed is like a framework to, I don't want to say make spaces safe, because I don't think that's really possible. I can't possibly not kick my water bottle over and scare the shit out of everyone as I'm walking around the room and things like that. But the idea is that we use a consistent framework that builds for people a sense of safety in the space that we create to an extent, but then also kind of provide a scaffolding for people to have their own sense of safety and it's not then dependent on the outer world. And I think that, in fact, I haven't died yet, but I'm sure that's something I will turn to when I am dying, that inner resource, when everything else becomes far too much. I will be going into that place. And so I think it's wise to visit it before you're dying. So there's a sense of familiarity and a sense of connection with that inner, I'm calling it a resource today. Sometimes I will call it something different, but you know what it is. We've all touched into it at some stage, that inner mystery.
Apologies for me asking a bunch of random questions, such as my mind in this topic. Now, meditation and dying, like people, believe that meditation is like practicing for death, like in yoga, you have shavasana, like at the end of a session where you literally are, laying down the death pose. Now, somebody also mentioned recently, I was listening to a podcast and someone said that maybe meditation isn't the best practice for death, like in that perfect stillness. Maybe you need a little bit more chaos in your meditation, like practice, to be able to practice that in real life, in real situations. In your experience, have you been trying to help people in those end stages with meditations, and how did that go for people that maybe didn't meditate before?
Do you know, the people that have been open to it are the people that have already been practicing. I feel, and of course everyone is so individual, and there will be exceptions to every rule, but in my limited experience, to try and start something new when the dying process has already begun is asking a bit much. It's not to say that you don't necessarily want to, but sometimes, when there's medication involved and just intensity, it's not probably the easiest time to start something new. But those that have already had a practice, it seems to provide, or even a practice of prayer, it seems to provide great comfort. And I've always thought I'm rather faithless, but I do have faith in something. And I encourage everyone to have a faith in something, because near the end you'll start looking, you'll start asking, if you're not that way inclined already. So I feel like that is a good thing to be aware of. What do you put your faith into?
Yeah. My grandma was she's been passed for just over a year now, and when she was in hospital, my mum put on some recorded meditations of mine from YouTube, and there was one nature one where you get to sit under a tree and there's this beautiful scene, and there's just so many places you can go. And like you say, that's a really great point. If you start practicing meditation, and the value of meditation isn't always the time where you sit in meditation, it's how it permeates through life. And then in that same instance, if meditation, is utilized for that, making that transition to death easier, we need to start practicing it before we get there. We need to use that preventative nature of wellness practices before we get there. And that's an interesting point you bring up, and it makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Now, before I get on too many tangents, I am going to ask you how you came to be here with us now, as you are in this realm of working in death and dying, and there's so many baby steps that have got you here. Was it a specific pivot, or did it, just kind of naturally occur where one door shut, another opened, and here you are? Like, what was that?
Yeah, well, it's funny. I've never known what I'm doing. I've never had a particular plan. I've always just, as cliche as this sounds, followed my heart, followed opportunities. I've never had a lack of opportunities presenting. And I think I've just, just followed my way. Somehow, my first career was very different to what I'm doing now. I was working in oil and gas for about 10 years from 17. And I kind of grew up in this wild, horrendous world that was very hard on my conscience. And I had this, I guess, pivotal moment where I went to a yoga retreat, and one thing led to another, and my life was ruined as I know it, because the teacher posed this question. And I honestly, I'd hardly done any yoga or anything. I just had a disposable income, and I was like, yeah, I'll go study with this teacher. And she asked us to go and contemplate or meditate on what or who am I? And I was like, I've got no fucking idea. And I kind of thought I had kind of built a reputation and climbed a ladder. And then I got to this place and I was like, whoa, I have no idea who I am outside of my bank balance and my title and my house and my car, all the things. And yeah, it fucked me up. It really, 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 really pulled the rug out from underneath me. And on the very last day of the training, I actually, got carried away. It's been a month-long training, and I got really carried away and thought I could do a handstand when I couldn't, but I was excited. And then I dislocated my shoulder. And that very afternoon, I called up Woodside and quit. Very poor form. I think I was in shock. But, it was 10 years, probably too long. And my whole body and my moral compass was spinning quite wildly out of control. And from then I, went back to work with my tail between my legs, tied up the loose ends, but then went on this massive journey of traveling the world and practicing yoga and teaching yoga and studying with anyone I could. And that, I guess, stripped me all the way back to my bare bones. And I think in a way prepared me for what no one ever really predicts to do in their, I think I was 31 when my dad was diagnosed with a terminal cancer. And then my mum was diagnosed not with a terminal cancer, but with a cancer a month later. And I slipped into the role of carer. And I think then I was like, firstly, this was not on my vision board, but also thank God I've done what I've done, because in some ways it granted me a little bit of a life raft to have practices I didn't always use. I wasn't, yogaing and meditating my way through this journey of becoming a carer, but I did have them to fall back on. And I think having then seen death in the home, an expected death and a supported death in the home of my father, really shocked me in how underprepared we are physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, financially, to do these things, to do death, to do the one thing that we will all do. And it took me, I don't want to say it took me a while to recover, because I'm probably still not recovered. But, after a period of time, I then just felt death kept calling me, whether it would be death of animals and people not able to be there with animals when they were being put to sleep, and just different things like that, where I just kept having these experiences with really facing death. And I realized that I was actually not able to turn away from it. And then that sent me into a rabbit hole of study and research and finding what this work is and how to do it, because it is quite uncharted waters, I guess, or it's getting a lot of airtime at the moment, which is so exciting, but previously it hasn't. and it just sent me in this beautiful direction of meeting a lot of people who are really, really, really alive, despite being immersed in death and dying and grief and loss. I feel like that was just one really long sentence. I'll pause.
You touched on animals. Now, one thing that made me realize that I do death and dying differently was when I was Rottnest and my dog had got run over while my dad was walking him. And so I came home and the family felt horrible because, you know, my pet had died and I wasn't there. But I was kind of matter of fact about it. And, you know, I didn't want to make dad feel like terrible. It's not his fault. These things happen. And I've got a motto that, you know, it's good that you outlast your pets, because you know, it's like you don't want. I've got another motto that, like, with my kids, I say to them all the time, I say, as long as I die first, know that this has been a success for me. Yeah, just to give them that little understanding. If they're at the funeral together, they're like, well, he nailed it. But yeah, so tell me, with pets and your experience with, you know, that must have been early on before you were working with people, and you kind of felt connected to the process. Was it like a, you know, just that inner peace and that whole serenity that comes with that must have been quite moving for you when you were first, you know, in that situation?
Yeah, I didn't feel like I planned this, but situations just arose where it was almost like, well, how could I not be alongside this pet or wild creature? There was just something in me that's probably not me at all. It's like the birthless, deathless, wiser part of me that just can stand and be there, where I run away from a lot of other things, but not. And sorry, and as I hear myself say that, there are still some things that I kind of balk at, but then I just kind of nudge myself forward, and I don't know. There's just something that is able to show up and be present. And that's not to say those that can't show up and be present, there's something wrong or there's judgment, because I know for some people it's actually really too confronting to be in the presence of death or the dying process. But I feel like maybe seeing my dad and that very elongated, painful process really initiated me into what it looks like, and there was almost I don't think arrogance is the right word, but like a stubbornness that was like, you can't turn away. This is a really, and I don't even know why I'm about to use the word holy, because I'm not religious, but this is a really holy moment. This is a really sacred moment. Be here.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I have this burning issue with someone that, you know, brought their dog to the vet to have it put down and just dropped the dog off and left. And I'm like, I can't erase that from my mind. But obviously people do death and dying very differently. And you would see this in the families that you work with. Is there a culture that does death and dying well?
Yes, not us, not ours, not many in the West. So Eastern traditions are very, very much more at home with death, and there's different practices that, you know, I don't know enough about them, and I'd hate to kind of cross them over and bastardize them, but I feel like that have real reverence for the dead and the dying. And I guess the word I was actually trying to think of with my dad, not a stubbornness, it was almost like a protectiveness.
Sure.
I think other cultures really protect not just the dead and dying, but also the bereaved. And they really caretake those left behind. Where, and I can only speak from my experience, but I've also seen it repeated. It's often once the person has died, there's this, oh, okay, then we have the funeral. Maybe people contact you in that week or so between. Maybe you get flowers, you get maybe some meals, but then after the funeral, there's crickets.
Yeah.
Where in some cultures, there's, rituals of like 40 days of having people in the house being fed, being cared for, even wearing black so people know you're mourning, where we just kind of get 3 days bereavement leave and have to scurry back to the existence that now has a gaping hole in it.
Yeah.
But I feel like we're noticing and acknowledging the repercussions of not having assimilated death by hurrying it up and rushing it. I think we're really figuring out that's doing us no good. And I think that's why we're feeling this wave of change and interest in igniting, redoing death. Yeah.
Even in my own home, I was asking my parents like why we don't have more photos of our, family members that have passed on. And it's just not something that they really thought about, because it wasn't culturally something that we did, I believe. It wasn't something that we've seen, so we won't do it. But by bringing this up with them, now we do have photos of definitely my grandma's, because my grandfather's passed away before we had photos, I think. But the reality is we've got these big, beautiful photos now of my grandma's in the house and in sight. And, just for myself, I would love my kids to have photos of me around after I've passed. So I just want to make sure I start the cultural, shift now.
Yeah.
It's very focused on me, isn't it?
Hey, you were the star of the show when you were the dying person.
I don't know if many people know this because it was my story, but I actually attended a podcast recording where Erin was the guest. It was a live recording, and which probably planted the seed for what I've created now. And it was this beautiful little old house that they use for yoga and different workshops and things. And I was sitting there kind of second row in a COVID sort of setting where the seats were very spaced out. And I was just struggling not to ask so many questions that came up. And so I am so excited to have you here with us now. And I even wearing my heaven shirt for the occasion, such as my love of the opportunity to make the most of this. Now, death doula, so the actual term is new to most people. Now, I've had birthing doulas for my youngest two children, and at the end of that birthing process, I end up, her name was Helena Hentz, and I end up just in a blubbering mess, just holding her and crying. Such is the connection that we've had throughout that process and the drama that it was like. And I've never had a Tom Cruise moment of having a child. But so in a death doula, do you have different packages for people to choose? Because I believe your role to be so vast. Like a birthing doula has the spiritual connection of just being able to help with so many little aspects and bits that are going on around during that chaotic time. Death doula, like it's a longer period of time that you would be with the family. So, what sort of, things do you offer to help these families during this time?
Well, sometimes it's long, sometimes it's super short. And I think I mentioned to you when we chatted the other day, I actually had one instance where I spoke to this beautiful woman on the phone. She'd just heard of me through word of mouth, and she'd said, look, I don't have any family. I really want a death doula. I have a terminal illness. And then she's like, send me your stuff. And we arranged to, we didn't arrange a date to meet, but we kind of penciled something in. And then I never heard from her. And I was like, oh, was it my prices? Was it, and I went all into my head and, oh, did I say something? Did I not? And then I actually found out from the person who recommended her that this woman had died suddenly. She'd actually slipped, fallen, hit her head, and I was like, wow. But I remember the words that she said to me that I was able to pass on to her colleagues, and vice versa. Like, she'd actually given me so much information in that one beautiful chat that I was able to kind of sew a few things together anyway. And it was such a beautiful experience. I'll never forget. It's almost like I don't know the soul's journey. I don't know the mystery of all the timings of things, but it really taught me, we never know when someone's going to depart unless they've got, they're going the voluntary assisted dying route. But it just showed me, that if we can be as compassionate and as caring as possible in any given interaction, because we actually don't know when it will be the last one. We don't know if we'll get to see them again. We don't know if we'll be walking alongside them. But any meeting could be the last. And in that case, we didn't even really have our first meeting. But it was just something I will never forget. And then in terms of, you nailed it, like, it's very, very vast what I do and how, the word doula means to serve. And I just see that I serve death and grief in any way that I am asked to. Like, I haven't been asked to do something that I'm not willing to do. Everything I've been asked. Pardon?
Do you make food?
I wouldn't put that upon. I wouldn't do that to someone. I'm not a
a good takeaway.
Skills. Yeah, I do have a really glorious friend who makes care packages, and that's her break. She loves doing that. So I'm like, perfect team. We need a little team. And I think food, nourishing people is so important, but I don't feel confident to be handing over what
I don't know how picky they'll be, to be honest, Erin.
Well, and the dying person probably wouldn't taste much anyway, but for the loved ones, nutrition is really a generous gift that we can pass on, but yeah, not from me.
Right. So is it more centered towards the person that has the illness that is dying, or is it more about their family?
Totally depends. Totally. Sometimes the family have called me in, and I'm not a death doula, I'm a carer, and I'm totally okay to be called whatever you want to call me as long as it's pleasant. And I can morph and change. And there's other people that, and they're normally people that I've met somehow along the way that call upon me as a death doula. And they specifically, it's like they're yearning for a non-family member to talk to about death and dying and their fears and their worries, because they don't want to upset the family members or burden them, or the family members are like, can we not talk about your death? Let's pretend it's not happening. So it's very, very varied. And it's quite fascinating. Even the people that I've worked with in their funerals that I've not met when they were alive at all, I've always had this funny sense of like, do I know you? Like, there's a real strange, and I don't. Sometimes I've even stalked them on Facebook to see if we've had mutual friends, but we don't. There's just this strange recognition or a familiarity, which I think guides me, like, which keeps me going and trusting this weird but wonderful work.
Well, maybe your vibrational energy changes when you're going through that phase where you're, like in that non-verbal communicative way, there's like different elements at play that when you start, transitioning, your soul kind of connects with people a little bit broader or deeper or in another way?
Yeah, I have
We don't know.
no idea.
Just
But I know it feels right, and I think um you can I trust those feelings.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you offer a gold, silver, and a copper package, do you? Like, is there is it well written or documented, or is it hard to nail the packages, so to speak? And is there photos included?
And you said what included?
Photos.
Oh, um, so do you know, I have a standard kind of offerings and packages that I then tailor. And it's very much individualized, but it's a based on. I just want to let you know, if you can see me doing something with my hands, I am stroking my dog's ears,
Yeah.
who is
No, we appreciate that.
yeah. If you're like, what is she? What is
That's
she
how to
doing?
live fully, right there.
Pacifying the dog.
It
Or
does
she's
look like you're doing mystery like magic. If you weren't, you're stirring some sort of witch's cauldron in a special sort of way.
yes, she's my emotional support dog.
Bless.
So we digress, Pete. I knew this would happen. What were we
Not
talking
our
about?
fault.
Packages, offerings,
Yeah, yeah. Probably not
digitalized.
your strong point.
Pardon?
Probably not your strong point selling this.
It's really, it is the hardest thing, and I've had to get a little bit more, I guess, professional, because it is a profession, and a little bit more assertive in that regard. But it's also really bloody hard. It is really hard, especially if a person, once they have died, trying to ask for money is really awkward. And I think this is probably a little rite of passage for most self-employed people, but also anyone working in the caring space. You have to get over that pretty quickly, otherwise you won't be paying your bills.
It's so valuable though, like to be able to do this in such a way, like speeds up your grieving process, because I believe you help people like ask the right questions, set up processes to be able to make, just all of the admin and paperwork easier to deal with, which is just like mind-bendingly hard, just doing your like travel documents, let alone like actually when you're in a place of grief and you've got family members that are squabbling over like different ways and beings of things and stuff that happens during that time period. So your service is of huge value, and it's hard to be able to paint that picture in a beautiful TikTok about it or something, to help people see the bright lights and joy of dealing with the death doula. Yeah, it's huge what you do. So you do actually help with people with like, guiding them through those admin and things to what to expect and how to deal with these stages, right?
Absolutely. It's honestly like it can be literally companioning a person through the dying process, but it can also be the calling around and getting quotes for things. It can be another thing that a lot of death doulas will do is speak
Things?
to.
What are we talking about? What things are we getting quotes for?
The after party, like
Yeah.
no funerals, cremations. Some people want living wakes, but just kind of putting things to so a family member doesn't have to sit on the phone and get upsold,
Yep.
all that stuff. But a lot of what death doulas are suggest, and I think Western Australia is behind as usual. But what is happening over East a lot is that as the movement grows and the profile of death doulas is elevated, there is a move to like encouraging people, instead of buying flowers, putting money towards a death doula and things like that, so that it's like a community support system and network of providing a valuable service that is, flowers are lovely, but we all know we can't eat them, and they're not going to make phone calls for us, and they're not going to hold your hand, when you need it. So just finding more creative ways to help educate the community of the importance. And it's like buying a car. You're not looking at car yards until you need a car. Death doulas are probably the same. You're probably not looking for one until you really need one, and then you might not know where to find one. So it's things like this, and people like you guys being brave enough to listen, which I hope, will have a little ripple effect. And I will also talk about it to anyone that will listen.
You are amazing at talking about this. It's so, you got really nice energy for it. It makes it seem like a life energy transaction. How are you doing your life differently since you've been dipping into this death and dying realm?
I've had to do a lot of, I guess, reconciliation between, when I'm helping others plan their end of life. I put myself through that first, so I could, be in my integrity when I'm saying we need to do this document. That, I made myself do these things first. It took a long time. But then I had this like vast incongruence between what was important at end of life and how I was living. So seeing that, I was like, holy shit, like if that's important, then do what you need to do to start living this way now. It also made me realize like most of what we think is important is not important at all. And I knew that on a, I guess, cognitive level, but it wasn't till, when you're, particularly with my dad, I haven't had that strong a connection with anyone else. But when you're in that space where your world has stopped, they are dying, and everyone else keeps going, it seems really fucking rude. Sorry for all my potty mouthness, but it's a very hard thing to assimilate. Like, how could you be happy? How can your world be going on when mine is ending? And I don't think you get that feeling till you're in it. So I had to also reconcile my judgment of others and my unfairness of expecting people to know how to meet me or what I needed when I didn't know, but also they'd never been through it. So I think having this big life experience where I guess I became an adult. See ya. But I became an adult and doors open. I digress. I got distracted. What question?
How are you doing life differently? And
I'm doing it better.
Incongruence with
Doing it way better. Living more lightly, with more integrity, and I would say more freedom, because I'm acutely aware that this all ends.
And how is your heart? Like, are you loving like moments more and people more?
Oh, moments more, people I question, particularly in 2023. I am questioning not just why am I here, but I'm like, what is the purpose of humans? Because we don't seem to be doing a very good thing collectively. But with moments, far more appreciative of the simplicity and our senses, and the fact that, I don't know what happens after we die, but I'm pretty sure, I know we don't take the body with us. So I really try and utilize my senses and the pleasure of having a body, because, if the soul moves on, we won't get to feel and taste and touch and hear. And therefore I try and make the most of that while I still can. Yeah.
Sure. There'll be time for people to ask questions at the end, and I'm sure they have a few on the tips of their tongue. So I would like to ask you what your question may be for our audience. But before we get to the question, where was your head at to put the question together? and what were you thinking, or was it easy, hard?
It wasn't easy. And I guess I was scared of not knowing who would be here and how deep they might want to go in their inquiry about their relationship to death. And then I thought, well, they've shown up. They've come to a talk about death, and they either know you or me, and hopefully therefore have a bit of faith in you or me or both. So I did land on a question, but I thought it is, because I do feel like the body is a very useful grounding tool. I wanted to kind of ask it in a little bit of a meditation, if that's okay.
Oh,
So
that
it's
is
not just like
divine.
an answer from the head.
Yeah.
Is everyone okay with that? Since if I can remember that
Erin, please. That is delightful. Yeah.
you don't know what I'm about to do.
No, I do not know, but I am loving the shift.
Okay. But you can choose, if you're like, oh, I don't want to answer this question, and there's a lot of resistance or a lot of rebellion, you can decline. Okay. And maybe just sit and breathe and be with yourself and be like, oh, fuck, that was a big question. Who is this person asking these big, and comfort yourself. Okay. Sound all right?
Sounds amazing.
All right. Let's boogie. If you're comfortable, to close your eyes and just notice your breath now. After all these words, and please take all of mine with a grain of salt. They are just mine. They are fleeting, they are changing, just like your thoughts, just like your breath, just like your own theories. And I'd just like you to kind of drop deeper into your body, this body of yours that's alive and well right now. And then we're just going to do a little bit of imagining. Yes. So I'd like you to imagine that you have been given 1 week left to live. You have a life-limiting illness, which means that in 1 week from now, you are very gently going to depart this earthly plane as we know it. And you will be leaving without pain, without stress. It will be peaceful and you will be at ease. But my question to you is, if money were no issue, there were no barriers that you know of, what would you do with this week? And who would you be? I'm going to invite you just to take a few breaths into these big questions. Of 1 week left to live, what would you do? And who would you be? And notice the sensations in your body and the response of your body. Your body has its reasons. Again, you can bring your hands onto your body if that provides any sense of comfort or connection. And if and when you feel like answering, you can come back, slowly opening your eyes.
My eyes got a little bit sweaty, forgive me, but I get emotionally connected with my thoughts. I would like to answer first because I appreciate that was a very moving question. And what I would like to do is as many people as I can on a plane. I'll check the weather conditions, but we're all going on a surfing holiday, and I'm going to surf my brains out, and I'm going to be so brave, and throw caution to the wind and not care so much about my health, obviously. But there's like my head went straight to the Maldives because it's the most amazing place to surf, eat, sleep, repeat, and it's such a beautiful place to hang out with people, and it's just gorgeous resort lifestyle, just heaven. But my eyes were welling with tears because of all those people with me, and just feeling that joy of spending time with them in just nothing makes me happier than the surfing stoke. And there was a time where I went on a holiday to the Maldives, and I got a little bit bored, or I don't know if it was the guilt of not having my family with me or something. There was a big group of us. There was at least 12 or 15 of us in that traveling party, but the island was kind of dead. There wasn't heaps of people traveling at that time. Australia was in a bubble, so we didn't really care about money as much as the rest of the world at the time. But it was, yeah, that is where I would be in that week, just carefree, surfing, just having meals, like it's all catered for. It's just buffet every meal, and just beach and love. And yeah, that feels amazing. I do dream of this in my life, to be doing this style of living, but it seems to be on hold a little bit, for that reality check that I get. But yeah, that is so cool. Thank you, Erin.
Pleasure. I heard the what would you do?
Oh,
And you did say you would be carefree.
I was
Who,
emotional. Tell me more. Ask me more. What
just
did I mean?
who would you be?
Oh, who
Like,
would I be? Oh my God, I'd be who I am right this second. I feel so good right now. Like, it makes me feel so good to be thinking of being there with the fam. And I don't know how well people know me, but I love like being the master of ceremonies. I love like being the team leader, the festival organizer, the party creator, and my alter ego of Party Pete. I'm just absolutely so happy there. So yeah, that sounds amazing, and I hope I can create these experiences with more priority in my life, based on that thought. So thank you.
noted and recorded, so you can share this with people and say, if I forget, this is what I wanted.
Yes. Oh, I love watching people surf. I love surfing. So if I just got all my family out at that surf break, just it could be no greater experience.
You could do that even when you don't have just 1 week to live.
I know, it's so expensive.
You can start recreated in Perth.
It's the most expensive surf trip. But for time poor people that, just want to, like I say, eat, surf, sleep, repeat, it's amazing for the amount of waves you can catch and the joy of being there. But yes, thank you for that tip. You definitely can. You can create those moments in your own way. Yeah, 100%. I get you. Thank you. What would you do, Erin?
Oh, can we let someone else speak? I want to hear everyone else.
I'll answer.
Sure. All right, Lorraine, you're up.
I'll answer. So I've got a wee girl who's 8, and my sister is in Scotland, and she's got a wee boy who is 9. And I would get on a plane and I would meet them in Lapland, and I would spend the last 7 days being the observer of pure innocence and joy. And that would be that.
Where's Lapland?
Santa Claus.
Yeah.
Finland. Santa Claus town, where it's all snow and you see the sleds and Santa's there, and it's just it's a Christmas town, so it's just Christmas lights and joy and kids and
all year round.
What's that?
All year round.
I don't know if it is all year round actually, but I know it's there now because I've been looking up the flights. I want to go. I'd love to take my daughter there while she still believes in Santa.
Yes.
Mm.
Divine.
And who would you be?
I think who would I be would be just I'm happy being me. I would just be the observer. I would be just in every present moment watching their joy.
Mhm.
And I think that's enough. Mm.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Drinking in the moments.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I know I have too many what ifs for your question, but I'll stick with like the over like just the encompassing aspect of it. And from like where I am now in life and the stage of life I'm in now, if I found out that, you know, I'm peacefully gonna go in a week and it's guaranteed and there's, you know, no money issues or anything like that. I think regardless of if money was a thing or not, I wouldn't be able to do everything that I want to do in a week, even if I had unlimited money, even if it, you know, was limitless sort of thing. And so this stage of life I'm in at the moment is like I don't feel like things can get to a better place without me contributing something. So I think I would fast track like myself. I would just devote that whole week to spending time with absolutely anybody, wherever I wanted to be, being unapologetically me, like recording every bit of it, writing down every thought I have, just everything. And like advertising the fact that like I've got a week left. I'm like, this is me. I've been trying to do this for 30 years. This is me. I got 4 more days. Like, pay attention, like, take it all in, and just unapologetically sort of just go. And, you know, I'd spend the time with people and I'd live what I breathe. And I believe in everything I say all the time. And I believe in all that stuff. So I'd sort of like practice what I preach. I like to imagine that's what I would do, but I'd definitely be terrified. But I wouldn't want to be, you know, I'd want to be as transparent as well. So yeah, I think that's what I would be like.
Beautiful. It's confronting. It's so confronting. But the reality is like this could be our last week.
Yeah.
And that not to scare people, but as a motivator. And we only have 24 hours in each day. Like, are we doing what is really important or what we've been told is important? And just kind of questioning that all the time. All the time. I love the unapologetic. You repeated that quite a few times. I was like, he is definitely not apologizing for his behavior in that last week.
No, I would it wouldn't be so much behavior, but like, sorry, if this is confronting, I'm just going to say it anyway. You need to do this. I'm just saying it, whatever, take it or leave it. I'm going to die, but there it is. But I don't think I'd hold back on just being me sort of thing. And it was funny actually when you were earlier on bringing us in with the meditation. It took me into a place that I haven't thought about in a long time. And when I was younger, I had like this fear of death. And I remember it came because I was contemplating, I was imagining, and I don't remember why, but I remember trying to imagine me as just a brain and then trying to imagine me without a brain. And I was like, I got lost. I got lost in the fact that I couldn't imagine no mind. And I was like, there has to be something. So,
there's really a beautiful meditation you can do. And I always think about it in a hospital setting is where, you know, if you're laying there and you know, just feel into yourself and then imagine yourself with no feet and say, are you still there? Then imagine yourself with no legs. And are you still there? And then just keep you know, disassociating yourself with your body parts and just really zoning in on who you are based on, you know, without the carrier. And it's so powerful.
I remember doing one similar to that, where you start off in a mirror and you're looking at a mirror, and then you like create your mental image of that, and you close your eyes, and then you start imagining bit by bit, like each of you not there, are you still there? Until it gets to the mind.
Yeah,
that was awesome.
yeah. No, I haven't.
Thank you for the
beyond
question, Erin. That was a cool question.
Does anyone else have any other questions for Erin before I butt in again and ask her more and more?
I was going to say you were like very excited today, Peter, asking your questions. I can see it.
Do you actually sit with people as they pass, Erin?
I have not. I have not been. That is something that I thought would happen, that I would be with people as they transitioned. But then I was quickly educated that'll be really unlikely. And often it's the family members that are actually there and whatnot. But even with my dad, there was a thing of timing, and it was really fascinating the way that I happened to be out of the room. My brother happened to be out of the room, and then it was just him and mum, and then he went. So I think there is something quite magical in that, and I don't know if the soul has a choice or what, but I haven't been there when it's happened. Only with animals, and that's generally when they're being euthanized, so it's not a natural occurrence. So I'm actually, in a sense, I'm looking forward to if and when that happens, but I've also had to kind of recombobulate with myself, because I used to think that was the pinnacle, I guess, being with someone, and that meant, it does mean something, but it's not often for me to have that meaning, if that makes sense. It's obviously not my place to be until it is, if that makes sense. Yep. Yeah. But my ego definitely got a bit bruised, initially when I thought my mum and brother had been with my dad. And I was like, I thought I was the favorite. No. And then I found out my brother also wasn't in the room, and I was like, oh, it's okay. It's all okay. It was just meant to be him and mum. But it can cause a lot of strife in between family members, and family members feeling like, oh, they died alone. But I actually have a theory, when a person is dying and there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of BP, they're in the hospital, there's a lot of coming and goings. It's almost when there is a lull and there is peace and quiet, then they can slip away, which often families feel guilty about, or they kind of smother the person and never let them be alone because they don't want them to die alone. But it seems to be quite this mysterious thing of when the time actually occurs. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There is also a beautiful program which requires volunteers. It's called the No One Dies Alone program, where you can go through a process of becoming a volunteer to sit basically vigil in, I think it's 4-hour blocks, with people in care facilities that are actually alone, or that their families aren't.
No One Dies Alone.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, No One Dies Alone. Which is really, because some people can request that, to have someone with them, if they don't have family members, or they don't like their family members, but don't want to be alone. Like, how beautiful to be able to offer that. That was a long answer to a short question.
I would love to do that. Yeah,
I think it'd be really, really, really beautiful. But I also see my time in my life, it's not my time. I'll just leave it at that, to be doing that part of the work.
Okay. Thank you.
Pleasure.
I always wanted to donate to the clown doctors to be able to help the kids in hospitals, because it makes such a massive impact. Has anyone thought about entertaining people in their palliative care? How does that work? Because people are obviously it's like the end of life, but they're generally conscious, and they're, how do they pass time in this place without the monotony of the beeping and the...
Yeah, this is why, if I get my way, I will not be in a hospital or a care facility. I will be, I've got quite specific wishes and desires, which I bang on to everyone that will listen. Because that would be my idea. I wouldn't want to, end up in a hospital and end up in that kind of situation where, sometimes you'll be sharing a room. One person might like quiet and peace, and another, might want entertaining. But I think more often than not, there's a bit of a difference that needs to be pointed out. Palliative care isn't necessarily end of life.
Yeah.
We kind of have this idea that palliative means you're going in and not coming out.
Yeah.
But palliative can actually be really, really wonderful, especially when called upon early, just as comfort care. And often people will no longer need palliative care, and they don't die yet. They will die. We will all die. But palliative care doesn't necessarily mean end of life. But I think to then come back to end of life and those going through the active dying process, I think it is often a quietening. And they might not need entertainment. They might be reconciling their regrets. They might, they'll be a little bit busy on the inside. There are traditions, like in the Irish tradition of keening, where people would come and sing at people's bedside. There are a few different things like that, but not...
No one comes in with a violin.
Or a clown. No. Unless you request it. I don't know if that's something that's important to you. You can put those things in your advanced health directive.
Oh, let's talk about advanced health directive. So
you want to do a quickie on advanced health directive?
I believe that one of your great birthday celebrations was bringing the family together to write out your advanced health directive. Now, what better way to party with your family than to write down how you want to spend your last days? What did you learn about individuals in the family, and what would be like that passing gift that you would give to our listeners in speaking of something like an advanced health directive?
I feel like there's a couple of questions in there. So I think I'll go in reverse order. I think everyone should be having conversations about death and dying while they're alive and well, and to limit the burden of, we've had this conversation. We've got to know a little bit about each other's wishes, but then having them written down so no one has to commit them to memory, I think is a huge gift and a service and a legacy that we can leave for each other. I was going to say, I highly recommend a paperwork party, but it really depends on your family. My family is tiny. My mum, my brother, and me. It's all that's really left. And they are not anywhere near as besotted by death as I am. They're not. And they've said that to me a few times, like, it's great that you've gone down this path and, it's all the stuff that you like, but we don't want to talk about it. No, don't. And that is very, very, very common, that families, they just shut the door and say, well, I'll be dead. It doesn't matter. Do what you want. Or you love me, you'll know. All these things that are not very helpful. Not at all. So what I did for my family, based on an incident where someone's advanced health directive, it was a bit unclear what someone's end of life wishes were. And I saw it play out between the treating team and the family members. And at this stage, the person involved, she had dementia, she had a lot going on, and wasn't able to advocate for herself. But I saw how messy it can get when it's not crystal clear in the end of life. I think they call it treatment goals. No, goals of care. When you go into hospital, they'll ask a patient their goals of care. Anyway, so this prompted me to go home to my mum, my brother, and say, all I want for my birthday is for us to sit and go through our advanced health directives, because we talked about it for a long time. They'd kind of just been shuffled around. And what I learned was how tolerant my family are of me, because they said yes. My brother drank a lot of wine, I think, to get through. My mum fidgeted and avoided sitting down for ages, but eventually we sat down, we laughed, we cried, we shared stories of how much my dad's death had impacted us and how differently it had, so I learned what really, really, not damaged my brother, but really distressed him, which are things I didn't mind at all. And then he had done some things that I definitely couldn't have done, and I found really distressing. So we got to air all this out. And in that sense, I went to bed very, very peaceful, knowing everyone that, my tiny little family, they know what I want, I know what they want. We can rest in peace knowing that we will probably be able to honour each other's wishes. Did that make any sense? I feel like my brain's gone into.
I asked so many questions in my questions, such as my excitement. I think that was of value. And
everyone should do an AHD. If your family won't party with you, party with your friends.
Ooh, with friends.
Yeah, you could do a paperwork party with your friends. I think you could be onto something like having
like an Amway party.
Yeah.
Where you just have popping champers and we're all, because you want to create a death cafe like events, right?
Death cafe, I've been moving more towards like grief gatherings and community grief gatherings and things like that. I've done a few death cafes. Death cafes are brilliant, but they're very much, the idea is there's no agenda, no promotion. It's not a business thing. It's just like to share coffee, cake, and chats about death. Where I guess I do have a little bit of an agenda. I really want to educate and inform and challenge and connect with people over something that I find really important. And as someone who facilitates quite a bit, I guess the essence of a death cafe is don't facilitate it. So I find that really hard.
Oh, that'd be painful for me. Yeah, I'm telling Paul. Let's smash this one out. Huh?
Yeah. I don't want to just keep talking about the elephant in the room. I want to bloody elephant out. Yeah.
I have something that I'm curious about. So, like, I used to like sit and have chats with my mate all the time, and like I'm fine talking about death, right? But it's hard to know the context when someone else is talking about death. So you never know, like, why are you talking about death all of a sudden, like to people? And yeah, I find. Do you think that that's like an interesting thing that could come up, like when people obviously start going down this route, trying to plan for what they want to happen? It's like, well, why are you talking about it all of a sudden? Like, what would you say to people that question that type of stuff?
I would say, yes, I am talking about it because I'm thinking about it. Absolutely. I think people, particularly when I kind of started very openly speaking about death and dying, I think a few people were concerned. And I was like, I am the healthiest and the happiest I've ever been because I'm meeting these limitations of my mind and these societal stigmas and things like that. So I get that people worry a bit. They're like, why are you talking about death? Because will it kill you talking about it? No, it will not. Just like talking about pregnancy will not get you pregnant. But it's very normal, I think, for people to like squirm. And I think that's our role. If we can be comfortable in our own bodies and try and regulate and be like a center point for people to dance around, I think eventually we'll get more comfortable having these uncomfortable conversations and encouraging them. And I guess asking questions, if you were ever concerned that someone was contemplating suicide or contemplating taking their own lives, I think then there might be a bit of a duty of care to ask explicitly if you are concerned. Where other times, it's quite natural to not know what the right thing to say is. But I think, if that is being flagged, you would probably step into that discomfort and be explicit.
So I remember whenever I do talk to my mate, and because we're deep thinkers, we're deep talkers, we go to lengths of any conversation. And whenever he brings it up, he goes, "I know you don't like talking about it." I'm like, "It's not that. I just need to know the reason you're talking about it, so I know if like we're contemplating the good, the bad, the after, the before, like So, but I imagine a lot of other people new to just going to the length of a conversation like this, they must be like, whoa. So thanks.
And I think it's also reading people a little bit, and knowing when to stop, which I've learned very slowly. Like, you generally need to stop before they tell you. If they have to tell you to stop, you've gone too far. But I'd be really curious when you're going, why do you want to talk about it? I'd be really curious about what's happening for you. Or maybe you're asking, like, why don't I want to talk about it?
Well, it's never that I've not wanted to talk about it, but it's like we were just talking about something else. Where did this come from? It's like the context of it. So that's a very fine-tuned example, but it definitely, if it can make me question, somebody like, well, why are you bringing this up? I imagine that, it can make a lot of people question the same thing, but with different severities and stuff. So I just wanted to see if I wasn't alone in noticing that. Yeah.
Definitely not. We are more the same than we are different.
Oh, 100%. All right, let me just ask you a couple of quick questions before we close. Unless anyone else wanted to jump in with a burning question, they may at any stage. But I would like to know what you would write on a billboard if you had the opportunity.
Oh, far out. I think a quote, I guess, today, that I was like, oh, that's timely. And it made me recalibrate thinking about death and dying. It was when I was thinking about a question for today. And it was from Atticus. I'm reading it. I wrote it on my little whiteboard over here. Life is the art of dying. And I was like, ooh, is it? That sounds delicious.
Yeah.
Life is the art of dying. I think that would maybe stop traffic or cause a little dingle with people going, what?
Yeah, as Justin puts it there, it's one big masterpiece. So when you sign off on your, you put this beautiful picture together on collage, whatever you'd like, and then you finally sign off on that final piece. That is beautiful.
Yes. It also made me think that, and you wrote it in your email, 5 out of 5 people die. The leading cause of death is also birth. Our whole life is a dying process. So if we could make our life art, it's far more beautiful than just living to pay tax, right? And
hallelujah.
Yeah.
I'm not a religious man. Yes, I'm with you there. Are you a bucket list person or not?
Not now. not currently, not in this season of my life. I think I ticked quite a few boxes in my life early on, but I realized I was actually kind of running away, like very much seeking things outside of myself and kind of looking for something. And now over the last few years, I'm quite content. Not to say that I won't, if I was given a death sentence, that could change as long as I had also a lot of money to go with that. I might get a bucket list real quick. But there's nothing that I'm like, oh, really, nothing that money could buy anyway.
Yeah.
Mm.
And do you know the mindset that people are generally in when they're conscious, verbal, in no pain? Are they, from your experience or from what you've read about, are people generally in a place of regret, deep love and reverence, or what's their sort of general, like, is there, we don't have to be general, but is there a commonality to thought in this time?
Do you know, a lot of the people that I have worked with have been of the generation that aren't that talkative, and haven't openly expressed regrets, particularly. But I haven't gone digging because I've felt that would be so. Like, what about now? Have you sorted all your regrets out? But there's a wonderful book by Bronnie Ware, an Australian. She was a palliative care nurse who wrote about the top 5 regrets of the dying. And I think they inform the way I live. And I've also, if I've come across people maybe they're not dying, but they've had quite a significant diagnosis, and are undergoing treatment and things like that, I've kind of recommended that book amongst a few others. But I can't say I've noticed any. I haven't been around or, as I said, with people in that pivotal moment enough to pick up any themes. I haven't actually seen people go into bucket list mode either, which surprises me. But that could also be the generation that I'm generally working with. I wonder if I met someone in a similar age bracket to myself, if they would be like, right, I'm going to go do things. And if the our elders, have just been a bit more accepting of what they've already experienced.
Speaking of books and recommendations, do you have any other like books, podcasts, documentaries, series, things that you love?
I do, but not off the top. I've got lots. Maybe I could. Do you want me to?
If you were gifting a book, what would it be?
Oh, it is called. Let me quickly look at. It's a Buddhist book on death and dying, which is very like thin and palatable. You don't need to be.
Perfect.
You don't need a lot of time to get through it. I found it easy reading considering the topic. It's called Preparing for Death and Helping the Dying by. Can I spell it? Because I can't pronounce it.
Sure.
Sangye Khandro, Khandro. And that was gifted to me for a friend who knows about my little love affair with death. And it's I was like, wow, I want everyone to have this. But that said, not everyone might be open to these perspectives.
Well, if they have it on the shelf.
Yeah, and it's just like a little
to it when that time arrives, such as the joy of books.
Yes. Yeah.
And little books. The Buddhists are really trending with their fast-paced information share, so they're onto it.
I do also have the Tibetan book of the Dying, and that's like a gnarly, chunky book with tiny little writing. And when I got given this little slither of a book, I was like, yeah, I'll start here.
Yeah.
Much for someone with my attention span, much more likely that I'll get through it.
It's so respectful when you meet, or you hear, you don't meet them that often, but when, you know, in this day and age of knowledge share, when there's people that have actually been, you know, in that work where they've, you know, like Gabor Mate has spent, you know, 10 years of his life in palliative care or something, where he gets to talk with people that are end of life. Is there someone like that you follow?
I would say Bronnie Ware, the same woman who The Regrets of the Dying. Yeah, and she's Australian. Like, I found her very grounded and no sizzle, like just really easy and genuine, but also talked about, which I found, I'm very glad I read her book when I did, because she also went through after, and whether it was because she was working with a lot of death or not, but she then experienced like almost like a massive ego death herself, and was questioning, like, why am I here? Do I want to stay, etc., etc. And I too feel like that's a very normal part of being human, questioning your existence. And parts of us are dying, even though it's not our overall death. And we're not really equipped to support ourselves through those little mini deaths either. But because she writes about it in her book, when I was kind of at the bottom of the barrel, one of the times that I was at the bottom of the barrel, I found it really so reassuring that it is just simply a part of it. We're not straight line creatures. Nothing in nature goes in a straight line. So yeah, I found that helpful to support myself through those times of contemplating death, I guess. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, I would like to wrap it up there, and I am absolutely you know, so grateful for your energy and the time you've spent with us, and the knowledge that you're, you know, able to put in such a delicate way that we can pick it up. And I will put in the notes, you know, everything about Erin, where you can catch her, where you can find her. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with us that we may not have touched on?
I think Justin's just nailed it. He's found the website. He's found my little book list. He's got everything.
I even subscribed to your email list.
What? Shit, I better write an email. They are very sporadic.
I was curious to see what it would be. So I was just like, I wonder if she has emails going. Be cool.
Every now and then. Yes. So I think I feel complete, and I'm so grateful for this opportunity to talk with the death curious, because I don't think you'd be death curious unless you're also life curious, and that's really the coolest thing to, in case this is all the only chance we get to relish it, the good, the bad, the ugly.
Perfect. Well, I've noticed how my face has been so alive throughout this conversation, and there may be something in this for me that I actually need to take a closer look at. I mean, I believe I'm too emotional to be able to be supportive to people in this space, but maybe I could definitely take a look at why I am so happy here, and see where that, you know, that leads me in the way I do life. So I thank you so much, Erin, for creating this spark in me, and this availability to be able to chat with somebody that I have met along my path in this world of death and dying. And I look forward to chatting with you very soon. Thank you very much for coming along.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks.
Yes, thank you to our audience. And
thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Take care of yourselves. Go gently.
Superb. Thank you, Erin. Oh my goodness. Genuinely, my face was like this the whole time. What's
It was
going
really cool.
on?
Thank you.
As I
And
told you, you're extra excited.
Well, I've had a good day. I ticked a few boxes and cleared a few things. We're talking about death and taxes. I went and saw my accountant. So that kind of, cleared space for my mind mix of what the hell's going on there. So, I think got me a good time. I was literally listening to like the podcast with Lorraine, and that was me after a festival and then a few days down south, and I sounded dead. So I was feeling bad for how calm and relaxed. Maybe I was calm and relaxed, but I was like, geez, Pete, could you give it a little bit more life? You're gonna lose people before they even start. Oh God.
might have been exactly what everyone needed.
Yeah.
I did say it was a really good podcast. It was
Last
it was
week.
deep. Yeah, it was just
Yeah,
like
yeah. No,
deep,
you were
and
definitely jumping on that. So
I was in a state on the last podcast. I was sitting on
You
a
guys
different
are
plane.
recording.
Sorry?
You guys are still recording.
yeah, we don't
Oh
stop.
yeah, we just
Okay.
But we just edit it out though. It's like, because what we do, right, is we have this, and then me and Justin hang out at the end, and I do the intro and the outro.
Okay. So should I go?
Oh, you can. Yeah. Sorry, I could keep you all night. But yeah, you're welcome to go. It's past your bedtime. Thank you so much, Erin. You're amazing. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. I'm not good at this time of night. My brain is really like,
Yeah, no, please go.
Like,
Enjoy
edit,
slumber.
delete, add things in. Thank you both so much. It's been beautiful.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Erin.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night.
Chat soon. Bye. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on the Go Team Live Meaning of Life Quest HQ podcast experience with Erin Griffin. I believe I need to delve deeper into this death and dying realm because I seem to like it so much. It seems to just sit so well with me that when you find some quirky thing, personally, I'm into the quirkiest things of all time. I love laughter yoga, journaling with people in a group, and death and dying. So I definitely am doing life differently, and I wouldn't have it any other way. So I'm super excited that you listened through, because you are also somebody that appreciates the processes of life and what we can do to live life more fully. I thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, and I hope you can take some notes. Whether it's I'll put the books in the notes. We've got the AHD. We've got all of Erin's details, and I think she's running 2 websites. So let's make sure we've got all of her details in there to help you. My community. This is the reason we do this, to be able to help you find the knowledge and information in the community that values doing life a little bit different and doing it well. So Justin, how did that resonate with you?
Yeah, it resonated in that it's a deep topic to cover, and there's a lot of directions in where people can go when talking about death and life, but death itself. And it was like I asked her at the end, like there are so many different, I guess, avenues you can begin to talk about when you start addressing death, and I think it's an important conversation to have with others, but also like to have with yourself. So it was just really cool to just see someone who's living that and breathing that as a, like, yes, let's talk about this, let's get it out in the open, and let's try and create a culture around it, because Western society doesn't really have a culture about it. So that was really cool. That was very awesome and intriguing, and something I completely support and agree with. And I do think that she touched on a few topics about like she can see it changing now, and I feel like she seemed a little bit lost for words on how it's changing this wave, but I think it's all combining with this like awareness. Like a lot of people are waking up to a lot of different aspects about, you know, self-awareness and external thought. So I do think it ties in heavily with this change that is coming, regardless of the state of the world at the moment. And I think it's important that people start, you know, communicating with themselves about these topics. So yeah, it resonated with me deeply.
Yeah, you are a deep thinker and a deep man. I believe we could talk about this for days, but we could always ask Erin to come back in another series, and you know, we can go deeper on this conversation. And you can find her with the links that we've given you, and we would love to hear from you. If you have anything that you'd like to add, or your answer to the question, if you think of a great podcast guest that may suit this platform, you know, we'd love to hear from you and get your feedback. And yeah, it's time to do your day. It's time to find your way to win the day. Let's everybody, if you haven't already, download the Game On app and be part of this experience on a deeper level, where we get to share our morning rituals, afternoon, evening, whichever way you like to journal. I definitely created this app to be able to live life fully, with that opportunity to tap into answering deeper questions in such a way that you know, helps my mind expand and find some clarity, focus, and support from, you know, how I start my day. I'm a morning routine guy, so I like doing Game On in the morning and setting myself up for the win. So we'd love to see you there. Download the Game On app. If you have any questions, or if you think of somebody that could utilize this app for creating a team, or, you know, in the workplace, or just one of your friends you'd like to start doing Game On together, it is perfect for creating that communication and connection, and that, you know, inner harmony that we get from doing the personal development work together. So thank you for listening. We love your work. It's absolutely, you know, just one of my favorite things to do, this podcast. So thank you for allowing me the time and space and energy to be able to put this together. Massive thank you to you.
100%. Thank you.
100%. Go team.
Go team.
Game on. Love your work.